Okay, now let's get into some new hirings because teams did not waste any time hiring their new staff, starting with the Marlins, who hired Peter Bendix as their new head of baseball operations. And then we had 3 manager spots filled so far since we filmed this show. Guardians hire Stephen Vogt as their manager. Mets hire Carlos Mendoza. And Cubs hire Craig Counsell as their manager. Which manager hire here makes the most sense to you?
A lot of movement already, Alex.
A lot of movement.
From 7 teams that needed a new manager to already we're down to 4 with all these new hires. There was just a lot of confusion for me, I'd say, in day one of all these hirings. One, I know we're going to talk managers here, but Peter Bendix for the Marlins, I'm so confused what the Marlins are doing.
Yeah, that was a
Kim
mess.
Ng was awesome.
And
I don't, we don't know the ins and outs of what happened or why or whatever, but I know that she did a fantastic job and decided
the team
to
around.
part ways, which to me says, look, the truth of the matter is you had Derek Jeter in a role there, you had Kim Ng in a role there, and they've both decided whatever's, I want out.
Yeah.
So look, I don't know much about this Peter Bendix guy or the hire, but I do know that the situation going on there in Miami hopefully needs to get better, and maybe it involves ownership needing to buy into a situation a little bit more and want to win, because you have very talented, bright people in the door that end up leaving and going elsewhere.
Like some of the best in the biz,
right?
Who want to be like, I can't do this, I'm out.
Exactly. So managerial wise, what's the question?
Which hire makes the most sense?
Which hire makes the most sense? A confusing one, but it makes the most sense to me, is Craig Counsell. Literally just shifting NL Central teams, like rivals, going from the Brewers to the Cubs for 5 years, $40 million, which is the highest paid manager ever. I like Craig Counsell a lot. To me, this, I feel like I've been saying it for the last few years with the Brewers. It almost just feels like an unwillingness to fully buy in. And I don't feel that way with the Cubs. I think they have a willingness to fully buy in. I think they just had to tear it down for a couple of years, and now they're on the cusp of being really good again, and bringing in a guy like Craig Counsell, who I think has done a fantastic job. I love the pickup, and his contract expired with the Brew Crew. I think it was a big shock to the baseball world to just see him switch spots over to the Cubs, but I love it. Great hire. Love Craig Counsell. I will go with him. But I will say confusing. Another one of those that is confusing to me is Stephen Vogt with the Guardians. He was playing
he's
last year.
Fresh out of the bigs.
And now he's just got a managerial job.
How do you know to make that transition that quick?
Well, okay, so look, catchers are like the prize.
They are.
That's just what happens. You play in the big leagues, you catch, you go become a manager. We saw with David Ross with the Cubs. Obviously, that's not happening anymore because David Ross is now out of a job there. But not shocking, but a little bit shocking. So, but yeah, he's now in as the Guardians manager. So
is that your most surprising move?
No, my most surprising move is Carlos Mendoza to the Mets.
Okay, explain.
Well, I don't really know the guy.
Yeah.
I don't know much about him at all. He was the bench coach for the Yankees for, 4 or 5 years?
So he's staying in New York.
Kind of Aaron Boone's right-hand man.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just feel like you have this team that's owned by Steve Cohen, who at every turn is making this like big splash, right? Like bringing in Buck Showalter, a legendary manager, and then bringing in Justin and Max Scherzer and, all these big pieces making big splashes along the way. And that didn't work, and you tear it all down. But then you bring in a big like GM and Stearns, and now you look and it's like the new managerial hiring. This is going to be big. Craig Counsell was linked there, and then it's okay. That's not going to happen. Then Carlos Mendoza. I don't know. I don't have much for you. I know I'm surprised. I know I'm a bit confused. He's been linked to places before. He's interviewed quite a bit over the last few years. He interviewed with the Tigers, but they ended up hiring AJ Hinch. I don't know. I don't know. That's why it's the most surprising to me.
Maybe he has a really good connection with the players that we're unaware of, right? Because he's the bench coach. Now they're building from within with the Mets. As you mentioned, they took the big swings. They got your brother. They got all these big names that didn't work out. Then they kind of started fresh, traded everybody away, build up the farm system even more. So now you're going to have younger guys kind of rebuilding this Mets team, and maybe he has a great connection with young players, and young players connect with him.
But he doesn't know the young players at the Mets. He's over at the Yankees. So, like, there's no connection. I mean, I'm sure baseball's a small circle, right? Like, people know each other. But, like, there's not this connection from within. I mean, you might be right, but also it's still, like, a bit confusing. I don't know. There were plenty of, I don't know. That's my answer. That's why it's surprising, Alex, because I just don't know.
Thanks for watching. If you love Flippin Bats, swinging 3-0, or just talking ball, join us. Call us at 213-537-9339 with your questions. We have a weekly guest, and we have a lot of fun, so hit that subscribe button.